I want to talk about macro and micro scaffolding. So a lot of times our tendency is to want to help kids to be successful, right? Totally great. Love the vibe of that. Love where that's coming from. And we also want to make sure that students are challenged at grade level as often as possible. And so when can we and how can we interrogate, like, what are the scaffolds I'm using? And is there a framework that can help us? The answer is yes. I'm going to talk you through WIDA's framework today. So this is a WIDA Focus Bulletin from 2022, and I think it's just really powerful in how it lays out all the things. So this is a focus bulletin for math, but I just want to say that when you scroll down, and any of these concepts I think are really helpful for all subject areas. So I said this is WIDA's framework. There's information from Mariani in here, Hammond and Gibbons. There's all sorts of like kind of scaffolding up resources and citations here. So the first one, right, is this idea of like the learning engagement zone is actually high challenge, high support. We probably know this. And then you go on to define macro scaffolding practices, like planned scaffolding. This happens before a lesson at the global level. Right? And then micro scaffolding that's happening during the lesson. So this is truly the interaction between teacher and student. This is super responsive, and that both are really important, right? Both are integral to scaffolding up rather than differentiating down in their language, right? To engage multilingual learners, and I would argue students with IEPs, any sort of student who's having a learning challenge with a challenging curriculum. So I just want to show you in figure 2 here, and I'll link to this resource in the description of this video. We have all sorts of ideas around scaffolding up, who we want students to be as learners, who we want teachers to be as professionals, as coaches, right? And these kind of different pieces here. So we're engaging students in quote unquote rigorous curriculum, right? The challenge is high. Here's what teachers are doing, and here's what students are doing. Developing a strong community of learners, right? Valuing students' resources for learning. So when we're thinking about the macro scaffolding practices, sorry, I said the teacher-student, but teacher lens, student lens, macro scaffolding is what we're planning for students to engage in the classroom. And then micro scaffolding is what we're doing in the moment. So we might model something. We might cue students in the moment when they're struggling, prompt them, signal them to do certain things. We might actually facilitate a connection to students' lived experiences to get them to grow their funds of knowledge and connect to their existing fund of knowledge, I should say, to make sure that they're making meaning, right? So all of these practices are great, macro and micro. We don't want to do just one. We really need both. We need that responsive piece. And I think often because we're pressed for time or we have too many students in a class, we tend to do mostly the macro and not the micro. And so I encourage you to think about where can we do more on kind of this side of the matrix. So again, this is on page 4 of this PDF. Coaches or instructional leaders who are listening, how can we get teachers and support teachers to grapple with this macro micro dynamic, and also be thinking about like how do you show and coach them on examples for how to do this? Because this framework was brand new to me after 15 years in education, and it is, I think, really important that we are giving examples of what it is, particularly when the framework is new and the concepts are new and we're so used to doing macro. Like, what does micro look like, and how do we make it feasible in a classroom? Is there something structurally we do, right? Is there something we choose kind of from a strategy bank of micro moves? These are things that I think would be really helpful for instructional leaders to consider in supporting their teachers.